The Nature of the Psyche, Its Human Expression, by Jane Roberts. Chapter 2. Your dreaming psyche is awake. You have hypnotized yourselves so that it seems to you that there are great divisions between your waking and your sleeping experience. Yet each of you will fall asleep tonight, and you will have experiences that you will forget only because you've been told that you cannot remember them. Many of the other dimensions of your own reality appear clearly when you are sleeping, however. When you sleep, you forget all definitions that you have placed upon yourselves and your own existence through training. In sleep, you use images and languages in their pure state. In the dream state, languages and images are wedded in a way that seems alien only because you have forgotten their great alliance. Initially, language was meant to express and release, not to define and limit. So when you dream, images and language merge often, so that each becomes an expression of the other and each fulfills the other. The inner connections between each are practically used. When you awaken, you try to squeeze the psyche's language into terms of definition. You imagine that language and images are two different things, so you try to put them together. In dreams, however, you use the true ancient language of your being. Your dreaming psyche seems to be dreaming only because you do not recognize that particular state of awareness as your own. The dreaming psyche is actually as awake as you are in your normal life. The organization of wakefulness is different, however. You come into dreaming from a different angle, so to speak. The off-center quality sensed in dream activity, the different viewpoints, the perspective alterations can add to a chaotic picture when the dream state is viewed from the waking one. Centuries ago, in your terms, words and images had a closer relationship, now somewhat tarnished, and this older relationship appears in the dream fabric. We will use English here as an example. The great descriptive nature of names, for instance, can give you an indication of the unity of image and word as they appear in your dreams. Once a man who tailored clothes was called tailor. A man who was a robber was called robber. If you were the son of a man with a certain name, then son was simply added so that you had Robertson. Each reader can think of many other such examples. Now, names are not as descriptive. You may have a dream, however, in which you see a tailor's shop. The tailor may be dancing, or dying, or getting married. Later, in waking life, you may discover that a friend of yours, a Mr. Taylor, Taylor, has a party, or dies, or gets married, whatever is the case. Yet you may never connect the dream with the later event because you did not understand the way that words and images can be united in your dreams. Your waking life is the result of the most precise kind of organization, held competently and with amazing clarity. While each person views that reality from a slightly different focus, still it occurs within certain ranges or frequencies. You bring it into clear focus in almost the same way that you adjust your television picture, only in this case, not only sound and images are synchronized, but phenomena of far greater complexity. Following this analogy, everyone sees a slightly different picture of reality and follows his or her own program. Yet all the sets in quotes, are the same. When you dream, however, you are to some extent experiencing reality from a different set entirely. Now, When you try to adjust your dreaming set in the same way that you would your waking one, you end up with static and blurred images. The set itself, however, is quite effective as the one as you use when you are awake, and it has a far greater range. It can bring in many programs. When you watch your ordinary television program, perhaps on a Saturday afternoon, you view the program as an observer. Let me give you an example. Rupert and Joseph often watch old Star Trek reruns as they eat their evening meal. They sit quite comfortably on their living room couch with dinner on the coffee table, surrounded by all the dear homey paraphernalia that is familiar to your society. As they sit thus comfortably ensconced, they observe dramas in which planets explode and otherworld intelligences rise to challenge or to help the dauntless captain of the good ship Enterprise and the fearless Spock. But none of this threatens our friends, Rupert and Joseph. They drink their coffee and they eat their dessert. Now, your normal waking reality can be compared to a kind of television drama in which you participate directly in all of the dramas presented. You create them to begin with. You form your private and joint adventures. You bring them into experience by using your physical apparatus, your body, in a particular way, tuned to a large programming area in which, however, there are many different stations. In your terms, these stations come alive. You are the drama that you experience, and all your activities seem to revolve about you. You are also the perceiver. In the dream state, it is as if you have a different television set, that is, however, connected with your own. Using it, you can perceive events not only from your own viewpoint, but from other focuses. Using that set, you can leap from station to station, so to speak, not simply perceiving, but experiencing what is happening in other times and other places. Events, then, are organized in a different fashion. Not only can you experience dramas in which you are intimately involved, as in waking life, but your range of activities is multiplied so that you can view events from outside your usual context. You can look down at a drama on the one hand, for example, and participate in it as well. When you are dealing with normal waking reality, you are operating at one level of the many that are native to your psyche. When you are dreaming, from your viewpoint, you are entering other levels of reality, quite as native to your psyche, but usually you are still experiencing those events through your current waking station. The dreams that you remember are colored or altered or even censored to a certain extent. There is no inherent psychological or biological necessity for this. Your ideas and beliefs, however, about the nature of reality and sanity have resulted in such a schism. Let us return to our friends, Rupert and Joseph, watching Star Trek, as each of you watch your own favorite programs. Rupert and Joseph know that Star Trek is not real. Planets can explode on the television set and Rupert will not spill one drop of coffee. The cozy living room is quite safe from the imaginary catastrophes that are occurring just a few feet from their couch. Yet, in a way, the program reflects certain beliefs of your society in general, and so it is like a specialized mass waking dream. Real, but not real. For a moment, though, let us change the program to your favorite cops and robbers show. A woman is shot down the street. Now this drama becomes more real, more immediate, probable, less comfortable. So watching such a program, you may feel slightly threatened yourself, yet largely unconcerned. Some of my friends may not watch such programs at all, but instead look at wholesome sagas or religious dramas. A preacher may stand golden-faced, earnest-eyed, extolling the merits of goodness and damning the legions of the devil. And to some of my readers, that devil unseen never appearing, may nevertheless seem quite real. You form certain focuses then. You will blithely ignore certain televised dangers as sheer good adventure, while others may strike you to the heart as too real. So in your waking and dreaming experiences, you will make the same kind of distinctions. You will be touched or untouched by waking or dreaming events according to the significance that you place upon them. If you do not like a television program, you can switch to another with a mere flick of the wrist. If you do not like your own physical experience, you can also change to another, more beneficial station, but only if you recognize the fact that you are the producer. In the dream state, many people have learned to escape from a bad dream by waking up or altering the focus of consciousness. Rupert and Joseph do not feel threatened again by Star Trek. The program does not make them feel less safe. When you are in the middle of a frightening physical experience, however, or caught in the throes of a nightmare, then you wish you knew how to change the station. You can often get carried away by a television drama, so that for a moment you forget that it is not real, and in your concentration upon it, you can momentarily ignore the greater reality about you. Sometimes, when you are deliciously frightened by a horror program, for example, you may feel compelled to see how it comes out, and find yourself unable to go to bed until the horrendous situation is resolved. All the time you know that salvation is nearby. You can always switch off the program. If someone watching a gory midnight special suddenly screams or shouts or leaps from the chair, how comical this seems, because the action is appropriate, not to the real situation, but geared instead to a pseudo-drama. The yelling and screaming will have absolutely no effect upon the program's actors and will alter the drama not a whit. The appropriate action would be to turn the station off. In any case, the frightened perceiver knows full well that the terrible events on the screen will not suddenly explode into the living room. When you become caught in become caught in frightening physical events, however, it is equally foolhardily to yell or shout or stamp your feet, because that is not where the action is. Again, you have only to change the station, but often you become so engrossed in your own life situation that you do not realize the inappropriateness of your response. In this case, you are yourself the programmer, and the true action is not where it appears to be in the exterior events, but instead in the psyche, where you are writing and performing the drama. In the dream state, you are writing and performing many such dramas. Using the analogy again, the brain is quite capable of operating on innumerable frequencies, each presenting its own picture of reality to the individual, each playing upon the physical senses in a certain manner, organizing available data in its own specialized way, and each dealing somewhat differently with the body itself and with the contents of the mind. Generally speaking, you use one particular frequency in waking life. Therefore, it seems that there is no other reality than the one you recognize, and no greater data available than those with which you are normally familiar. Events seem to happen to you. Often it seems that you have no more control over the drama of your own life than you have over the outcome of a television program. Sometimes, however, your own dreams or inspirations startle you by giving you information that is usually not available in the recognized order of events. It becomes very difficult to explain such occurrences in the light of the plots and scenes provided by your usual mental programming. You are so You are so conditioned that even when you sleep, you try to monitor your experiences and to interpret dream events according to the habitual frequency that you have learned to accept as the only criterion of reality. Quite literally, however, when you are dreaming, you are tuning into different frequencies, and biologically, your body responds to those on many levels. For that matter, the body is naturally equipped to handle projection of consciousness or out-of-body travel, whatever you prefer to call it. Your biological makeup includes mechanisms that allow a certain portion of your consciousness to leave your body and return. These mechanisms are part of the nature of animals as well. The body is equipped to perceive many kinds of experiences that are not officially recognized as native to human experience. To one extent or another, then, you learn to constantly monitor your behavior so that it conforms to the established criteria set up by sane or rational experience. You are social creatures, as the animals are. Despite many of your cherished, erroneous beliefs, your nations exist as the result of cooperation, not competition, as do social groupings. To be ostracized is no laughing matter. The comfort of social discourse represents one of the great building blocks of families and civilizations. The set criteria of reality, therefore, operate as organizing, psychic, and physical frameworks. There is still more flexibility within those frameworks, however, than is recognized. You still try to carry your own cultural versions of reality into the dream state, for example. But the natural heritage of both body and mind escapes such representation, and despite yourselves, in your dreams you come in touch with a greater picture of reality that will not be shunted aside. There is nothing inherent in the waking state that causes it to be so limited. The boundaries set are your own. The body naturally heals itself, for example. Many give lip service to such a belief. In actuality, however, most of you believe and experience a far different picture, in which the body must be protected at all costs from a natural leaning towards disease and poor health. Viruses must be warded off, as if you had no protection against them. The natural healing that occurs in the dream state is undone in the waking state, in which any such cure seems as miraculous and against the rules. Yet in your dreams you often see quite correctly the reasons for your physical difficulties and begin a therapy that you could consciously take advantage of. Waking, however, you forget, or you do not trust what you remember. On occasion, definite physical cures happen in the dream state, even though you may think that you are intellectual and knowing when you are awake, and ignorant or half insane in your dreams. If you were that dumb in the waking state, then you would be in far better health. In such dreams, you tune in to other frequencies that are indeed closer to your biological integrity, but there's no reason why you cannot do this in the waking state. When such seeming miracles occur, it is because you have transcended your usual official beliefs about your body and its health and disease, and so allowed nature to take its course. Often in the dream state, you become truly awake and grab a hold of your spirithood and creaturehood with both hands, so to speak, understanding that each has a far greater reality than you have been led to suppose. More often, however, there are instead only blurred glimpses and tantalizing views of a more expansive kind of experience. To make matters more confusing, you may automatically try to interpret dream events according to your own picture of reality and switch channels, so to speak, when you awaken. Suppose that you turned on your television set to watch a program, for example, and found that through some malfunction A massive bleed-through had occurred, so that several programs were scrambled and yet appeared at once, seemingly without rhyme or reason. No theme would be apparent. Some of the characters might be familiar and others not. A man dressed as an astronaut might be riding a horse, chasing the Indians, while an Indian chief piloted an aircraft. If all this was transposed over the program that you expected, you would indeed think that nothing made any sense. Each character, however, or portion of a scene, would represent, in fragmented form, another quite valid program or reality. In the dream state, then, you are sometimes aware of too many stations. When you try to make them fit into your recognized picture of reality, they may seem chaotic. There are ways to bring the picture into focus. There are ways to tune into those quite natural frequencies so that they present you with a more expansive view, both of the world as you define it and of its greater aspects. The psyche is not encased, in your case, within a frame too fragile to express it. Only your beliefs about the psyche and about your body limit your experience to its present degree. In dreams, you are so dumb in quotes, that you believe that there is a commerce between the living and the dead. You are so irrational in quotes, as to imagine that you sometimes speak to parents who are dead. You are so unrealistic that it seems that you visit old houses long ago torn down, or that you travel in exotic foreign cities that you have actually never visited. In dreams, you are so insane that you do not feel yourself locked in a closet of time and space, but feel instead as if all infinity but waited your beckoning. If you were as knowledgeable and crafty when you were awake, then you would put all religions and sciences out of business, for you would understand the greater reality of your psyche. You would know where the action is. The physicists have their hands on the doorknob. If they paid more attention to their dreams, they would know what questions to ask. The psyche is a gestalt of aware energy in which your own identity resides, inviolate yet ever-changing as you fulfill your potentials. Your dead relatives survive. They often appear to you in dream state. You usually interpret their visitations, however, in terms of your own station of reality. You see them as if they were confined to their relationship to you, and you do not usually perceive or remember other aspects of their existences that would not make sense in terms of your own beliefs. So often such dreams are like programmed dramas, in that you clothe such visitations in familiar props. The same sort of thing frequently occurs when you experience extraordinary flashes of inspiration or perceive other unofficial data. Quickly you try to make sense of such material in usual terms. An out-of-body experience into another level of reality becomes a visit to heaven, for example, or the heretofore unrecognized voice of your own greater identity becomes the voice of God, or a spaceman, or prophet. Your dreaming experience, however, gives you a guideline that will help you understand the nature of your own psyche and the deeper reality in which it has its being. Again, the dreaming psyche is awake. It deals with a different kind of experience than the one in which you are physically familiar, although that experience is also a part of the psyche. Daily life is a focus taken on the part of that portion of the psyche you call you, and there are many other focuses. The psyche is never destroyed, nor is that unique individuality of your own ever minimized. The psyche's experiences straddle your ideas of time. However, it seems to you quite definitely that you come alive and die. At your particular focus of consciousness, no arguments will suffice to convince you otherwise, for you are everywhere represented with the physical evidence of fact in quotes. You may believe in an afterlife to some extent or another, or you may or may not be convinced by the general theory of reincarnation. But most certainly most of you are united in the seemingly irrefutable belief that you are definitely alive now and not dead. Dead people do not read books. On the other hand, dead people do not usually write books either. Now, do they? In a strange manner, I'm telling you that your life, in quotes, life in quotes, is simply the only portion of your existence of which you are presently aware. In greater terms, you are alive and dead at the same time, even as I am. My focus, however, is in an area that you do not perceive. Existences are like notes playing along certain frequencies. You are tuned in to an earth song. Following this analogy, you are only following your own melody, and usually you are unaware of the greater orchestration in which you also take part. Sometimes in dreams, you do tune in to a greater picture, but against certain things appear to be facts, and against these so-called facts, even definite experiences can appear ludicrous or chaotic. Last night, our friend Joseph had a dream experience that intrigued him, and yet seemed highly distorted. He found himself greeting a large number of people. He believed them to be family members, though he only recognized some. His parents, known to be dead, were there. A brother and sister-in-law who are alive were also present. The brother was definitely himself, yet somehow altered in appearance, his features having an oriental cast. The entire dream was very pleasant and seemed to be like a homecoming. Joseph wondered, however, at this mixture of the living and the dead. It would be easy to think that the dream foresaw Joseph's own death and that of his brother and sister-in-law. You follow your own time sequences, however. The psyche is not so limited to it. Your death has already occurred from your standpoint. Yet it is also true that from its standpoint, your birth has not yet happened. You have greater experience then of your recognized time and existence frameworks. There you can meet with relatives long dead or with children not yet born. There you can meet with other portions of your own personhood that exist simultaneously with your own. In that framework, the so-called living and the so-called dead can mix freely. In such circumstances, you are literally becoming aware of other perspectives of existence. You are turning corners of being and discovering multidimensional depths of the psyche. Artists use perspective on a flat surface to try to capture there the feelings and experiences of depth that are in themselves alien to the flat canvas or paper or board. The artist may vividly evoke the image of a disappearing road that appears to be broad in the picture's foreground, only to turn smaller and smaller until it seems to vanish in some distant hidden point. No physical person will walk that road, however. An ant crawling upon such a canvas would hasten across just another flat surface and be quite unaware of the inviting avenue and any painted field or mountain. Now, in the dream state, you suddenly become aware on occasion of greater perspective. This perspective cannot work in your usual level of consciousness any more than the artist's perspective will work for the ants, although there is much that you could learn from the ant's consciousness. Say that I smiled. Your own waking consciousness deals specifically with certain kinds of distinctions. These help form the very structure of your physical existence. They highlight your lives, providing them also with a kind of frame. Quite simply, you want to experience a certain kind of reality, so you put boundaries about events that allow you to concentrate upon them. When an artist paints a picture, he uses discrimination. He or she chooses an area of concentration. Everything within the painting fits. So in your physical lives, you do the same thing. The artist knows that many pictures can be painted and holds in mind paintings already produced and those in the planning stage as well. So the psyche holds equally lives in progress, lived and not yet lived, and deals with a greater perspective from which your ordinary perspective emerges. I often speak of you and the psyche as if they were separate, yet of course this is not the case. You are that portion of the psyche that you presently recognize. Many people say, I want to know myself, or I want to find myself, when the truth is that few really want to take the time or effort. There is one place to begin, however. Try becoming better acquainted with the self that you are now. Stop telling yourself that you do not know yourself. There is little use in trying to discover other levels of your own reality if you insist upon applying the laws of physical life to your own larger experience. Then you will always be in a quandary, and no facts will fit. You cannot, however, insist that the laws of your vaster experience. Now, let me start the sentence again. You cannot, however, insist that the laws of your vaster existence as you discover them supersede the physical conditions of known life, for then no facts would apply either. You will expect to live forever in the same physical body, or you think that you can levitate with your body at will. You can indeed levitate, but not with your physical body, practically speaking in operational terms. You accepted a body, and that body will die. It has limitations, but these also serve to highlight certain kinds of experience. The body in which, the body in which your friend Joseph viewed his relatives in the dream mentioned earlier was not operationally physical. It was quite real, however, and at another level of reality, it was operational, suited to his environment. Now, in many ways, you simply have a brief attention span. The true facts are that you exist in your life and outside it simultaneously. You are between lives and in lives at once. The deeper dimensions of reality are such that your thoughts and actions do not only affect the life you know, but also reach into all those other simultaneous experiences. What you think now is unconsciously perceived by some hypothetical 14th century self. The psyche is open-ended. No system is closed. Psychological systems least of all. Your life is a dreaming experience to other portions of your greater reality, which focus elsewhere. Their experiences are also a part of your dream heritage. You may ask, how real are those experiences, those other experiences? But if you must ask in the whose terms, no, let me start that sentence over again. You may ask, how real are those other existences? But if so, you must ask in whose terms? Existence has a physical version. In that framework, you are born and die, and in a definite sequence. Death is a physical reality. It is real, however, only in physical terms. If you accept those terms as the only criterion for reality, then surely it appears that death is an end to your consciousness. If, however, you learn to know yourself better in daily life, to become more fully aware, even of your earthly life, then you will indeed receive other information that hints of a deeper, more supportive reality in which physical existence rests. You will find yourself having experiences that do not fit recognized facts. These can add up to an alternate set of facts, pointing towards a different kind of reality, and give evidence for an inner existence that takes precedence over the physical assumptions. A certain kind of discretion and understanding is necessary, however. Basically, the inner reality is the creative source of the physical one. Yet, to some extent, the physical rules are also inviolate at their level. You can learn to vastly enrich your own experience. Theoretically, you can even become aware of other existences to some degree. You can travel in your dream state into levels of reality separated from your own. You can learn to use and experience time in new fashions. You can observe knowledge from other portions of your own being and tap the psyche's resources. You can improve the world in which you live and the quality of life. But while you are physical, you will still experience birth and death, dawn and dusk, and the privacy of the moments, for this is the experience you have chosen. Even within that context, however, there are surprises and enchantments awaiting. If you simply learn to expand your awareness, exploring not only the dream state, but your waking reality in more adventuresome ways, your dreaming psyche is awake. Many of you have allowed your normal waking consciousness to become blurred, inactive, relatively speaking, so that you're only half aware of the life that you have. You are your psyche's living expression, its human manifestation, yet you allow yourself often to become blind to brilliant aspects of your own existence. In Joseph's dream, his brother's features had an oriental cast. Joseph knew that his brother lived as himself and also as an oriental, unknown to Joseph in this present life. If Joseph had seen two people, one his brother and one an oriental, he would not have recognized the stranger. So in the dream, his brother's known appearance dominated, while the oriental's affiliations is merely suggested. In your own lives, you will use psychic shorthand or utilize symbols in which you try to explain the greater dimensions of one reality in terms of the known one. Again, the dimensions of the psyche must be experienced to whatever degree. They cannot be simply defined. In the following chapter, then, I will suggest some exercises that will allow you direct experience with portions of your own reality that may have escaped you thus far.